I dreamed one night of a vast stone chamber which was dimly lit with burning torches. At the center of the chamber sat a massive block of granite, atop which squatted a cyclopean monument. It was a bizarre seashell of some kind, with massive ridges running along the edges of the enormous bivalve. Below the great stone shell were countless pairs of spidery legs which bend at odd, extreme angles. Venturing forth from the half-open mouth of the shell were several long, segmented limbs which ended in a mass of thin, writhing tentacles. Surrounding the horrible monument stood a circle of robed, shadowy figures. I watched as the strange men in their black robes danced and chanted, their bodies contorting in seemingly impossible fashions. I was transfixed by the scene, horrified and fascinated all at the same time. Suddenly, a cry rang out from one side of the colossal gathering. I could not see clearly, but several of the hooded figures seemed to scatter from their formation, breaking the circle and bringing the deep chanting to an abrupt halt. As the men fled the scene of the outcry, I noticed that one of their number was lying in the cold earth, unmoving. At that same instant, I heard and felt a crackling, almost thunderous sound begin to ripple throughout the stone cavern. A dull moaning sound rose up, beginning as a whisper, but gradually rising to a deafening roar. I saw several of the men become frantic and hold their hands tightly over their ears. As they fell to their knees in pain and terror, I thought that I could see strange, wispy forms of smoke or vapor begin to encircle their bodies. I stifled a cry of my own, but I must have failed to stop it fully in time, for I saw several of the crazed number turn and look in my direction. Before I could react in any way, I observed a sudden rumbling beneath my feet which grew in intensity in a matter of heartbeats. I could hear one of the men yelling in a foreign language, but as the rumbling and moaning grew louder and louder, the man's voice became more distant. The last thing that I heard him cry sent shivers down my spine. The rocky floor opened from beneath me, and great black flames seemed to explode into the air towards me. My head was thrown back, and I could feel my hair and clothing crackle and burn with the infernal flames. My skin seared and boiled away, revealing charred bones and blackened flesh. As the deafening, rumbling hellfire consumed me, my vision blurred and faded, gradually withering away into complete blackness. I suddenly found myself floating in a void. From my celestial vantage, I could see the earth below me with great roiling clouds and blue seas. Out of the corner of my eye, I could detect a blurry motion from deep in the blackness of space. As I gazed into the emptiness, the strange dark blob seemed to grow larger, and a distinct sense of dread came over my being. I watched as the shape came into view, and a mix of fear and curiosity came over me. The thing approached and seemed to be traveling more quickly than was physically possible, especially such an awful, amorphous shape as this. As the faint starlight shone down on the thing, I soundlessly gasped in horror. It was easily 10 times the size of the earth. Through the inky blackness, I could make out a gigantic black bivalved shell which closely resembled the horrible statue which I had only just witnessed. Bursting forth from the open shell were multiple articulated arms which ended in thousands of long, writhing tentacles. As it came closer and closer, the light from the celestial body slowly poured into the opening, and a ghastly, massive, horned beak seemed to be nestled within the roiling, writhing tentacles. I could do and say nothing, but could only watch in terror, as the demonic, enormous beast seemed to reach out within its bizarre limbs and worm-like tentacles. It began to encircle the entire planet with those black tendrils and draw itself closer, opening its gigantic shell and revealing the unearthly thing which was its head and mouth. With an unfathomable sense of pain and loss, I watched as the demon god Azathoth opened wide its black, bony beak and devoured the entire planet, drawing the huge sphere into itself within those hellish limbs. As the last hint of blue and green disappeared into the massive shape, I saw it suddenly turn its blind gaze towards me.